viewer a good understanding of the fascinating world of chess. I am George Mirijanian, Program Director of the Wachusett Chess Club at Fitchburg State University. This club meets every Wednesday evening from 7 to 11 in room C-192 in the McKay Complex at the university. And with me today at the Fitchburg Access Television Production Center is our award-winning director, Darren Dame of Fitchburg. He's assisted in the control room by longtime Wachusett Chess Club member Gail Lingner of Fitchburg. Also assisting in the control room is longtime FATV volunteer Andy Hawthorne, who will be handling audio. And behind the camera, following all the action, is another longtime Wachusett Chess Club member, Brian Bigelow, also of Fitchburg. But chess fans, I have the honor today to present you my new co-host, a very accomplished chess player from Westminster, Dave Couture, who is a renowned author, chess author. He has just come out with his second chess book, and I welcome Dave Couture to Chess Chat.
Thank you, George.
Well, Dave, can you tell our Chess Chat fans a little something about you? I know a little things about you, but maybe you could tell our Chess Chat fans something about yourself.
Well, I had joined the club for a year back in the early 80s.
Yes.
When it was at the St. Joseph's Club, and then I came back roughly around the year 2000.
Yes.
And pretty much have been here ever since.
You've been loyal. You've been a loyal
member since, roughly 2000 or so.
And you actually set up our website. You
Right.
actually initiated our beautiful website, which you passed the baton on off to Paul Godin,
Paul
who's now our
Godin,
webmaster.
who's done a fantastic job.
And I think our website, the Wachusett Chess Club website, wachusettchess.org, is no doubt, to me, the best chess club website probably in the country. I'll make that claim.
It might be.
Okay.
Especially since Paul has taken over. He's done an incredible
but again, you
job
took
with
the
it.
initiative to set it up.
I started it, but Paul's really run with it.
Okay. Now, can you tell our viewers something about the book, the books you've written? We did a program. You were here
Right.
2 years ago. Where you were a guest, and it was the title program was "Don't Play Like Me."
Don't Play Like Me. Right. That was going to be the original title of my book.
Yes.
Since then,
What have you? Now you've written another book.
it's just an expanded.
An expanded. Let's show
an expanded
actually our viewers.
version.
And this is called. What is this book called now?
Progressive Tactics, 2002 Progressively Challenging Chess Tactics. It's just a collection of chess tactics taken from my own games.
Now, how can people get this? This is actually available.
It's available on Amazon.
Okay. So it's good. It's very inexpensive.
Right.
If they can get it actually
Yep.
on Amazon.
And it's available as a Kindle book.
Yes.
So it's right now it's strictly electronic. So if you have a Kindle, you can look at it. But even if you don't, you can just download it to your PC and read it that way.
Oh, wonderful.
And sometime within the next few months, I hope to have a print version of it, because a number of people at the club have been asking for a hard copy of it, because a lot of people aren't that comfortable with.
And aren't you getting?
computers.
Oh, you told me you're getting some orders from overseas.
It's available worldwide.
Worldwide,
So, yeah.
yes.
So
So,
just
good.
just by
So-
virtue of it being on Amazon, people all over the world can buy it.
Well, I hope this little plug actually increases your
We'll find out.
sales.
We'll
Okay,
find
see.
out.
Well, Dave, today I have you as my new co-host because we're going to celebrate or devote this program to an anniversary, a 50th anniversary of a celebrated World Championship match that was held in Moscow, Russia.
Yeah.
Now, do you know who was actually world champion 50 years ago in 1966?
In '66, well, it was Petrosian.
Yes, Petrosian. Tigran Petrosian. Actually, most English speakers call him Petrosian.
Petrosian, yeah.
I know him as Tigran Petrosian. But either way, he was the world champion because in 1963, he defeated the reigning champion, Mikhail Botvinnik of Russia.
Okay.
In 1963, when he defeated Botvinnik, 3 years later, he had to defend his title. And you know who his challenger was in 1966?
It was Spassky.
Boris Spassky,
Right.
who went on actually in 1972, who lost to Fischer. But we thought it would be good to dedicate this program to a 50th anniversary because you know what Tigran Petrosian or Petrosian did? He came to Fitchburg You know,
which I didn't know until you
never
told
knew
me.
that.
Right.
That Tigran Petrosian, the 9th official world champion, was here in Fitchburg on February 26th, 1982, and he gave a simultaneous exhibition where he played many players at the same time at the St. Joseph Club in Cleghorn. That's where the Wachusett Chess Club was meeting back then, during the 80s.
Right.
Yeah. So
now, was that your doing?
Yes, I played a hand, yes, in inviting him. I picked him up at Logan Airport, he and his wife, Rona. She stayed at the Park House. I dropped her off at the Park House in Boston. She didn't want to come out. She's seen so many simultaneous exhibitions. But I drove Tigran along Route 2,
wow.
You know, and brought him here. And he gave, it was the last Friday in February, and it was a big success. In fact, it was written up big. The Sentinel and Enterprise had a big write-up, both before the simul and after the simul, and it got really big newspaper play. You know, not only in Sentinel and Enterprise, but on the Boston Globe, the Boston Herald. I mean, the New York Times.
How many boards was it?
Oh, I think he probably played 30. He only played about 30 some odd, I think.
Only?
Yeah, because when Bobby Fischer was here in March 1964, he played 56 players.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
At the club, yeah.
Wow.
So anyways, we have chosen the 10th game from the 1966 World Championship match. It was a scheduled 24-game match.
Right.
And Petrosian actually won it. He scored 12 and a half points. They didn't play they did actually 12 and a half to 11 and a half. What does that add up to? That's 23? I think
12 and a half, 11 and a half is 24.
23? 24. It is 24. All right,
yeah.
So they played all the 24 games, and Petrosian won. He had one more win than Spassky. Petrosian had 4 wins, 3 losses, and 17 draws. Yeah. So a lot of draws in this match. So we're going to show our viewers a very interesting, decisive game, 10th game. This was played on May 2nd, 1966. Yeah. And who had white in this game? Who was?
Was Petrosian.
Yes, Petrosian. Right. Petrosian. So what did Petrosian play as his first move? What was his first move here?
Knight F3.
Okay.
This is his opening move.
Okay, that's a good move, isn't it?
Just straight development.
Okay, it stops actually Black from playing his king pawn, center pawn to E5.
Yep.
So what Spassky did, he responded with the knight on G8 going to F6. So he's playing symmetrically.
Right.
So what did Petrosian do?
Petrosian gets ready to fianchetto his bishop.
Okay, so he plays G3. That's the second move.
Yep.
And Spassky follows suit and plays G6. So it looks like both are going for a fianchetto. That is, they're going to place their bishops, you know, along the long diagonals. All right. So what did?
And then Petrosian, before he fianchettos, kind of switches over to the English.
Yeah. Now
opening.
He could have actually continued with the bishop to G2.
He could have simply
Yeah, but he chose to interpose C4. He could have actually started the game with C4.
Right.
Yeah, and
still come to the
same position.
Right.
All right, but Spassky, third move, he just continues with the development of the bishop to G7. All right, so he's ready to castle. But what did Petrosian do now?
Petrosian does the same.
Bishop G2. Yep. All right. Well, Black says, hey, I castle before you.
Right.
So he castles. Black castles on the 4th move. Okay. All right, now it's
Petrosian does the same.
Okay, he castles. All right, so now here is where actually Spassky has a number of moves he could play. He could play D6. He could even play C5, keep this symmetrical.
Yep.
He could even play C6 with the idea of playing D5. I mean, there's a number of good moves, but what Spassky did, he played knight C6. Okay, so he's developing another piece.
Yep.
Okay.
Straight development.
Straightforward development. And what does Petrosian do now?
Petrosian does the same.
Okay, knight C3. All right. All right, so now what Spassky does, he plays D6. That's his 6th move. It does open up for the light squared bishop to come out, if it wants to come out.
Right.
All right, so what does Petrosian do now? Petrosian now, what is he doing?
D4.
All right, now, by a transposition of moves, now, Petrosian could have started the game with D4. That could have been his first move.
Right.
But we have reached actually a position with a name, a defense for Black. You know what this actually defense is called? What black is playing?
Is it a King's Indian?
Yes, this is is known as the King's Indian defense. And you know actually who was enamored of the King's Indian defense?
Fisher?
Fisher. Bobby Fischer loved this defense. This is what his favorite defense against D-pawn openings or closed systems like this. All right, so whose move is it now?
It's black's move.
Oh, it's black's move. Okay, so now it's actually
seventh move.
Seventh move coming up. So what? Now this is where black could have played the pawn up to e5 if he wanted to.
Right.
He could have brought the rook over if he wanted. But what he did, he played a6. Now what is the purpose of this move? Does this have a meaning? I mean, well, it does have a meaning. This move actually was introduced into tournament play back in the mid-1950s by an Argentine grandmaster by the name of Oscar Roberto Pano. Have you heard the name Pano? Have you heard the name?
I've heard the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is known as the Pano variation. The idea is to eventually support the advance of the b pawn, the b5. Of course, in order to do that, we might have to move the rook over to b8 to support the advance. But this was actually in vogue back in the mid-50s, and it caught on in Europe. You know, finally the word got to Europe and Russia that, hey, this is a playable system. All right, so after a6, what did Petrosian do on move 8?
He pushes the d-pawn.
All right.
Kicking the knight.
So he attacks the knight. So that knight has to move. And what Spassky chose to do, he certainly is not going to go back where he came from, the b8. But what he did is he came over to the side of the board, over to the rim, knight a5. Now, what does this threaten? Is there a threat here by bringing the knight over to a5?
It's immediately threatening the pawn on c4.
Okay, so the pawn on c4 is under attack. So, by the way, I thought that there's an old adage that, you know, bringing a knight to the side of the board is not to be recommended. You know the old saying? You know the old saying?
Knight on the rim is grim or dim.
Oh, dim, yes. But it does pose a threat here. So how does Petrosian respond to this threat of the knight attacking that pawn, undefended pawn?
I guess his main choices would have been either pushing the b pawn or pulling the knight back, which is what he did.
So he played knight d2.
Right.
All right, so knight d2 was his ninth move. The knight actually defends now the pawn and also opens up and adds further defense actually for the bishop now to exert more defense of that pawn, which is adequately defended as it is.
Right.
So this is what Spassky did. On his ninth move, he played c5. So he plays his pawn all the way up to c5. Now, what does Petrosian do now on move 10? It's his 10th move.
Queen c2.
Okay. Now, is there a plan? What do you think his plan is here? By putting the queen on c2, is he threatening to do something here?
Is he threatening? I don't know that he's necessarily threatening.
I mean, actually, this is actually, could he possibly follow it up with e4? We actually have the two knights, plus the bishop, supporting the advance of the pawn, but he holds off. He could have actually advanced the pawn immediately if he wanted to, but he chooses to put the queen on c2. In fact, that's the only good move the queen has actually in this position.
Right.
So it's a logical square to put the queen on. All right. So this is where Spassky, move 10, responds with e5. He plays his pawn up to e5 now. All right. So what does Petrosian do now after e5?
Now he gets ready to fianchetto the bishop.
All right, so he adds further defense of the pawn on c4, but he wants to fianchetto the dark squared bishop.
Right, and the fact that the queen's on c2 means that it'll be covering that bishop. So.
Right, it will be defending that bishop. Okay, all right, so b3 was played, and now we have, you tell me what you think Spassky's idea is. He plays knight to g4. Now, why is he moving this knight? He hasn't moved this bishop here, but why is he moving now this piece again? Well, he has a plan.
Yeah, and I guess it would be to prepare to push this pawn.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Exactly. To make way for this f pawn to advance to f5.
Right.
And activate, the pawns. Actually, take control of the center here.
Right.
All right. So knight g4 is what Spassky played. Now, what does Petrosian do in response? This is now his 12th move.
No.
Now he plays e4. All right. So e4. But Spassky's plan was to play f5. He plays f7, f5, and he does that.
Right.
All right. So now what does Petrosian do now?
Now he's going to exchange.
Okay, he exchanges. Now, what Spassky did, he didn't recapture that pawn with the bishop, because if he did that, it could easily block. I mean, it could be blocked with a knight. I mean, there's nothing to be gained by taking with the bishop. He wants to utilize the